When Series 15 started coming out, I uploaded a video detailing the reasons why I feel like a lot of the hatred for Doctor Who's newest era is either unnecessary or simply not very well explained. This was due to either people complaining about things without then explaining why they are a problem, or just straight up criticising things that are normal aspects of the show that have long since been established and were never problems before, but have seemingly just become issues overnight. And well, it looks like this fanbase has managed to one-up itself, as they always seem to do. Because oh boy, you lot sure have milked Series 15 for all the hatred you can get, haven't ya? Yep, you guys have given me so much material, enough for round 2 in fact. At this rate, I feel like I'll probably end up needing to make a new one of these for every series going forward. Oh wait, that's right, there aren't going to be any more series, are there? Because you lot have promised and sworn on your lives and bet your hearts and souls that Series 15 is 100% definitively the absolute last positive final batch of episodes the Doctor Who will ever have. You know, just like Series 11 was, and Series 12, and Flux, and the 2022 specials, and the 60th anniversary specials, and Series 14. But Series 15 really is going to be the last one, 100%. But regardless, you guys have cooked up an absolute treat for me today with these not criticisms, and I'm about ready to eat it all up. So let's get started. If there's one thing about this fanbase that I am sick to the back teeth of, and sadly there isn't one thing, there's about 50, but if there is one thing, it's all these comments of, oh, Belinda got killed off in this series because she behaves differently as the series goes on. Like, yeah, she behaves differently. This is called a character arc. It's a good thing. It's so funny to me how people... Well, no, actually, it's not funny, it's fucking infuriating how people are criticising Belinda for developing and changing over the course of the series, when last year Ruby was criticised for not developing and changing over the course of the series. Okay, I'm so confused. Are the characters supposed to develop or not? Like, make up your minds, guys, okay? Like, I'm going to touch on this more later, but when people criticise the show for not doing one thing, then the show does it, and then people complain that it's doing the thing they wanted it to do, it really comes off as though nothing pleases this fanbase, because any decision they make gets criticised. Back to Belinda though, I feel like a lot of people completely miss the point of her character arc, which is why it gets so oversimplified or just flat out ignored. Like, yes, she starts the series very closed off, cold and unsociable, but were people really expecting her to be exactly the same at the end of the series? Anyone who has seen this show before should have been able to tell that over the course of the series she would slowly warm up to the idea of travelling with the Doctor and gradually starting to appreciate seeing the universe in all of its all. Her first 3 episodes and her limited appearance in episode 4 show that her only desire is to get back home to her normal life, because that's what makes her happy. That's who she is, and she has a life there. She doesn't care to go travelling around time and space. In episodes like Lux and The Well, you see glimpses of her somewhat enjoying herself and starting to look like she could have a good time with this. But because of how no one in the world knows what Earth is, this worries her to the point where any enjoyment she was having goes, and this becomes the priority again. Then, in Story in the Engine, there's a really good moment where she has a heart-to-heart with the Doctor, and she slowly starts to understand more about the way he feels, and they gradually start building a connection. Before Interstellar Song Contest, where she's taken somewhere that gets her about as excited as I would be at a Doctor Who Comic Con with David Tennant, Russell T Davies, Catherine Tain, Judy Cowell, Millie Gibson, Ryder Seth, Murray Gold. You get the idea. And it's understandable that in this episode she really starts appreciating the bond that she's growing with the Doctor, and she's slowly starting to love seeing the universe, only to learn that the Earth has been destroyed, prompting them to go straight back there, wherein the fake reality starts. But once all the threats in the finale have been dealt with, she knows that the Earth doesn't get destroyed, so all of the joy she got from travelling with the Doctor now takes its toll as she gets ready to become his companion properly, because not only has she grown and changed since the robot revolution, but there's nothing stopping her from travelling with him now. and she wants to be with him. This is how she gradually progresses throughout the series, so for people to make comments like, Belinda shouldn't have been killed off, simply because she happens to do the unthinkable and have a character arc, is extremely ludicrous to me. I'll also quickly touch on what I believe to be a slight misinterpretation on the part of the viewers with how Belinda's life gets rewritten at the end of the reality war. Now, I don't condone the Doctor rewriting people's lives without their permission, but the reason I don't mind it here is because, well, he didn't do it without permission. After Ruby reminds everyone and manages to get through to them enough to convince them that there really was a Poppy, both Ruby and Belinda beg the Doctor to find some way of bringing her back. The Doctor doesn't do it to be selfish or immoral. He does it because Belinda has literally asked him to do it. So I find it strange that people criticise this as though the Doctor's forcing Belinda into this life that she didn't want and just gets lumbered with it, just because it isn't something she wanted before. But over the course of Wishworld and the reality war, she slowly starts to realise that she enjoys the idea of being a parent and having a child. So I really don't think it's this out of nowhere concept that the audience makes out to be. And besides, it's not like it was news to Belinda in any way. She knew full well that the Doctor saving Poppy was going to result in her having to look after her in one way or another.
If Poppy's real, that means she was mine.
I will find her. No, I swear on my life I will do anything to find her.
What do you imagine Belinda expected the Doctor to do? Do you think she was just going to ask him to bring her back and then abandon her on some rooftop? Actually, she probably expected him to bring her back so that Kate can offer her a job. All jokes aside, I do think this aspect of Belinda's character is somewhat misinterpreted. And speaking of misinterpretation, we are brought swiftly on to my next point. That being, one thing I feel like people are doing a lot is deliberately oversimplifying what's actually happening in the story, just to make it sound worse than it is, just for the sake of being negative. The primary example of this being that... oh, this one is so stupid. Belinda just stands in a box for the entire episode. This fan base sometimes, man, I tell ya. This is one of the criticisms... sorry, let me try that again. This is one of the criticisms that I find most annoying because it's basically a complete lie in every single regard. For one thing, people massively exaggerate just how much time Belinda actually spends off screen. You can go check it if you want, but I have gone onto BBC iPlayer and I can confirm Belinda is literally in the Stasis Pod for 13 minutes of runtime. Yet the criticism is that Belinda is in there for the entire finale? Well, you heard it here first, folks. The reality war was a 13-minute long episode. It's funny, I thought it felt a bit longer. But nope, you guys are right. It was a 13-minute long finale. Not only is the length of time itself exaggerated to a ridiculous extent, but I just find it so annoying when stuff like this is so oversimplified just because people want to make it sound dumb. Because if this is the way that you analyse media, do you not think it would be the easiest thing in the world to do this with any episode in existence? The girl in the fireplace is just the Doctor spinning round walls. Army of Ghosts is just the Daleks flying out of a massive circle. Heaven Sent is just the Doctor running around a castle and then punching a wall. Like, do you see how easy it is to take stuff so out of context like that? I mean, you could do this with anything. And sadly, this is exactly what people are doing with Belinda, completely ignoring any of the context of the situation she's in. She's risking living forever, never aging, never dying, or anything for the rest of time itself, just to look after her daughter. Think about the nature of that situation for a moment. But trust this fan base to take a great concept like that and dumb it down to the absolute basics. It's funny, I don't remember people complaining when this was the Doctor in the Pandorica Opens. Honestly, what were they thinking with the Big Bang? Just having Amy sit in a box for the entire story. What kind of rubbish was that? I'm genuinely not sure what people expect Belinda to do just shove Poppy in the Stasis Pod and abandon her there on her own? You guys do know, right, that she's a literal child who cannot do anything by herself. You're aware of that, right? Right? And speaking of Belinda and Poppy, people for some reason were disappointed with the fact that Belinda is a character, actually has depth, and feels like a person. That's a bad thing apparently, because when it's revealed that the Rani bringing back Gallifrey would break the wish, causing Poppy to stop existing, Belinda objects to this. But according to the fans, she shouldn't be objecting to it because Poppy isn't real? Yeah, that's quite easy for us in the audience to say, isn't it? But I think if it were us and we had all those memories of raising a child, looking after them, teaching them to walk, teaching them to talk, we'd all probably feel quite differently if it were us. Or at least, I hope we would. Like, how were people actually expecting the dialogue to play out? The wish would end permanently. So what happens to Poppy? She'd stop existing. We can't do that, but she's not real anyway. Oh, well, do whatever the fuck you like then. I don't care. No, that's not how people talk. People are not that two-dimensional or that lacking in depth, personality or anything. The world isn't that black and white. People are more conflicted than that. They're more complex. That's what makes them interesting. I mean, yeah, maybe that's how the dialogue would go down if this were the Chris Chibnall era, but because it's not, there's actually some conflict, some drama. The characters don't all unanimously agree with each other on every single thing. Like I said, I think the people complaining about this would probably feel differently if it was their child that they have memories of raising and looking after. And again, to use an example of the show doing a similar thing before, in Forest of the Dead, why was Donna so devastated when her children disappeared? I mean, they weren't real, right? So therefore she shouldn't care about them, and she should just carry on with her life as though nothing has happened. Hey, these aren't my rules, guys. This is your logic. It's just criticism like this that gets on my nerves because it feels like there's nothing to actually complain about, so people are just slagging it off for no real reason. And to reiterate something from my first video on this, I'm not saying that you are not allowed to take issue with these things. My problem with it is that people take issue with these things without actually explaining why any of it is a problem. Like, why is Belinda warming up to the idea of travelling with the Doctor over the course of the series a bad thing? Why is it a problem? Why is her looking after Poppy in the Stasis Pod a misstep? Why shouldn't she care about what happens to Poppy if the wish ends when she has all those memories of being her mother? If these types of issues were better explained by the fanbase, or in some cases explained at all, then I wouldn't get so frustrated by them. But people make these big 20 to 25 minute long videos on these things, and in all that time they still don't actually explain what the problem is, despite the length of the video. There's nothing wrong with starting the point off with Belinda in the reality war isn't the same as she is in the Robot Revolution. But if that's the point you're going to make, you then need to follow that up with, this is why it's a problem. Not just, the character changes over the course of the series, saying it in a negative tone of voice to make it sound bad, and then moving on to talking about something else. Like, if this is a bad thing, then explain why. Don't just say, this happens and it's bad, and then move on. This is why the fanbase annoys me so much, and why a vast majority of the hate directed at it seems unnecessary, and like people are just mindlessly hating for the sake of it. Because people find it easy enough to come up with these criticisms, and they can say things that they don't like about the era, but then when it comes to actually explaining the problem behind it, that's when they get a bit stuck and can't seem to actually back up the point they're making. I know that some criticisms can be self-explanatory, but not all of them. Stuff like, Belinda goes into a stasis pod with Poppy, yes, that's how I'm wording it because that's what's actually accurate, isn't something that in and of itself is obvious as an issue. So why people don't even attempt to justify the points that they themselves are making is rather absurd to me. And because they don't even try, it just makes it seem like they can't explain their points, which gives the impression that they're just making things up to get annoyed about, which is one of my pet peeves when it comes to this fan base. One thing that people complain about with regards to the current creative team is that the fans are not being given what they are asking for. The reason this, as far as I'm concerned, does not work as a criticism, and again there'll be more on this later on, is because every time the creative team give the fans exactly what they ask for, they are then criticised for doing what they were asked to do. For example, in the Interstellar Song Contest, the Doctor gets flashback to seeing Susan inside the TARDIS. This instantly raised a lot of questions, at least in my mind, as you can probably tell by my reaction.
Go back. Go back. Grandfather, go back.
What? What the fuck? Yeah, I was pretty excited about this. However, despite this being a clear sign of the show giving in to what the fans want and have been asking for, this was either completely ignored by audiences or was slagged off for having her there. Wait, so let me get this straight. People spend years and years begging the showrunners to bring back Susan time and time and time again. Then when they do, people complain because she's quote unquote just there for no reason. This is such an annoying criticism, and the argument that I often hear for this is, yeah, but it wasn't explained how that happened, or why she was in the TARDIS, and we never saw her being reunited with the Doctor. Well, yeah, that's because the storyline isn't done yet. It hasn't finished. Really, give it a chance. It seems like people think that because it hasn't been explained yet, that therefore means that it never will be, and like Russell has absolutely no plans for the character going forward, and like all he wants to do with the character is those few glimpses we saw of her in series 15, and like he has absolutely no interest in doing anything else with the character at all, or bringing her back properly for some reason. Like, I mean, plot twist of the century here, but sometimes writers do this thing where they set something up in one series to be paid off in the next. This, ladies and gentlemen, is called foreshadowing. Anyone else's mind's a bit blown from that? I know mine sure is. Like, people are getting annoyed that the show hasn't explained something that it isn't time to explain yet. I mean, just be patient. Now, listen. If Susan's return was something that was constantly teased throughout Series 15, and the Doctor started seeing her as far back as the Robot Revolution, and she showed up in every episode of the series, or every other episode, whatever, and then in the finale nothing came of it, then yes, there would be a reason to be annoyed about that, because that would be an example of the series itself setting up a mystery that it then refuses to explain in the series finale. A story which primarily exists for answering questions set up through the series. However, Susan's return, at least with regards to Series 15, wasn't set up until the Interstellar Song Contest, which is episode 6 of the series. If Susan was intended to be a big part of the series finale, I think Russell would have most likely set up the mystery a bit earlier than just 2.5 episodes away from the end, don't you? And if you want to make the argument that they started setting Susan up during Series 14 with episodes like The Devil's Cord, this sort of ties back to what I was just saying about how Susan's return wasn't constantly teased throughout Series 15, because it's not a Series 15 story arc, it's an RTD2 story arc. So it's most likely a big mystery building up for a good couple of series, and then once that storyline has been done, presumably in the next series, then they'll move on to another storyline. Like, RTD2 hasn't finished yet. Like, just wait. I know a lot of people think RTD2 has finished because Ncuti Gatwa left, but Russell hasn't left, has he? So, still in the same era, guys. It also doesn't make sense that people are so annoyed about this, because even if the ending of the episode wasn't reshot, the plan is, and always has been, to wait until the next series to deal with all the Susan stuff. We know this, because the original ending of the reality war was going to be the Doctor and Belinda dancing in a nightclub, where the camera then pans out to reveal Susan watching them, and that would be the cliffhanger leading into the next series. This unfortunately is not the ending that we got, but any which way you look at it, it's clear that the plan for the Susan storyline is meant to span across at least 3 series, so I don't think people need to be getting so annoyed that it hasn't been resolved yet. Just be patient. Now, if when the Susan stuff gets explained and dealt with, people decide that they don't like what they do with it, or how it all gets explained for whatever reason, then that's one thing. But at the minute, people have just decided to be annoyed that the show is literally in the process of giving them exactly what they have asked for, and this just screams of toxicity and hating for the sake of it. Like, it very much reads like, right, I am going to watch this episode, and I am going to absolutely tear the shit out of it and look for anything and everything I can to have a problem with. Right, here the show is doing exactly the thing that I asked it to do. Now, how do I complain about it doing this? No, I can't think of anything to criticise. Screw it. I'll just vaguely describe what happens in an exasperated tone of voice to make it sound bad. That way it'll sound like there's a problem with it, even though I can't actually think of anything wrong with it. This fan base is just too negative in general, to the point where a lot of the time it feels like it's negative just because it wants to be, just for fun. And honestly, what does it say about us as a fan base that whenever the writers give us exactly what we ask for, we can't just accept it and be thankful for it? We have to drive ourselves and everyone around us crazy trying to find some sort of fault with it, rather than just being grateful for the fact that we're getting what we want. It's so unnecessary. Honestly guys, I think I'd feel more pride being part of the Flat Earth Society at this rate. The hate that this era is getting is honestly bordering on obsession at this point, and it's gotten to the stage where people feel the need to completely lie about what's actually happening, just as an excuse to be negative. Now, this is something I spoke about earlier with the whole Belinda stands in a box for the entire episode comment, but sadly that isn't the only example. One thing I commonly hear regarding the series 15 finale is that after 2 years of build-up, the Rani does absolutely nothing in the entire 2-part story. Now, to anyone who possesses brain cells,
This is a lie.
but because there'll probably be a few hate watchers in the audience, I feel like I should go over this in detail. So let's have a look at this, shall we? Now, over the course of Wishworld and the Reality War, the Rani kidnaps a baby in order to create a fake reality that spans the entire planet. She then creates huge questions within the reality in order to create enough doubt to rip the world apart and literally destroy the Earth in order to summon Omega and bring him back, all as a plan to create an entirely new Gallifrey and restore the Time Lords. That sounds like quite a lot to me. But remember guys, the Rani does nothing in these 2 episodes. Yep, she does absolutely fuck all. You know this story could play out exactly the same without her in it, because if she wasn't there, then the alternate reality in Wishworld would still happen because... okay, well Omega would still have come back, because... well, Poppy would still be there, and... yeah, so much for that argument. Now, the justification that I usually hear for this argument is that she's undermined in the way that she is defeated, and I will agree that watching her getting eaten by Omega is unintentionally very goofy. However, I like the idea that she summons him back in an attempt to control him and make him do what she wants, only for him to actually kill her and be the cause of her demise. I just think it's the fact that he kills her by eating her, that to me is where they went wrong. Now, I don't think that the Reality War is a perfect episode. In fact, it's the only episode that I've only seen once since Russell came back. partly because I really enjoyed the first 50 minutes, but for me it falls apart at, well...
Oh man, I like this face.
Yeah, my heart sank a little at that, I can't lie. And even though I don't mind Empire of Death as much as most people do, I will say that for all the shortcomings that that finale had, the reality war massively improved upon for me. This applies to multiple things, like the way Sutek survived in that story doesn't make any sense and creates massive plot holes. Whereas the explanation for how the Rani came back makes a lot of sense and is also very in character for her, as was her motivation to bring back Gallifrey as opposed to Sutek's motivation being to find out who Ruby's mum is. Because that's totally something he would care about, isn't it? Additionally, the way Omega was defeated was a huge improvement of Sutek being dragged through the time vortex, because this doesn't look anywhere near as remotely goofy as that did. And I actually thought that using the Vindicator was a pretty smart way of dealing with the threat, since it had been previously set up that the Vindicator has as much power as it does, and because that's what the Ranis were using for their plan, there is that element of satisfaction to it, how it's using the villain's power to take down another villain. But even though I don't consider the reality war to be a perfect episode by any means, I'm not going to make things up about it that are objectively speaking not even remotely close to true, just to be negative about it. And I feel like the people that are hate watchers cannot call themselves true Doctor Who fans, because no one who is a fan should want to complain. Criticising Doctor Who shouldn't be your motivation behind watching the show. Your motivation should be wanting to watch a fun 45-minute adventure in time and space and having a good time with it. Or even if this era isn't for you, as I know it's not for everyone, you shouldn't be watching it to come up with criticism for it. If you're watching it because you've watched the show for so long, or it's out of curiosity, or just because you hope that the next episode will be more up your street, then that's fine. But don't go into the episodes desperately trying to rip them apart because you want to. Because that's not only making you miserable, but for those of us in the fan base who do genuinely care about the show and do want the best for it and are just trying to enjoy it, you're making the rest of us miserable as well. I mean, the sad thing is that there's only about a dozen people in this fan base like that, but whatever. And for all of this, Russell T Davies is killing Doctor Who, Disney is killing Doctor Who, Chris Chibnall kills Doctor Who, it's been dead for ages. Well, I'm sorry to say that I think the hate watchers are doing 10 times more damage to the show in the long run than any of those are. Honestly guys, I'm tired of this fanbase and I'm very quickly running out of patience with it. As I mentioned in my previous video, I do not think that this era is perfect. I went through a few things in that video about this era that I don't personally like, and I'm not trying to say that it's above criticism, because there's been plenty of things so far that I would change about it. The first being I'd bring back in Ncuti Gatwa full time, and the next series would be him, Ruby and Belinda all together, with a classic Russell T Davies 2-part Dalek finale at the end of the series. Okay, I'm getting carried away now. Focus, Marty. The point is that any issues I have with this era, I can outline to you and explain in detail why it doesn't work for the story, how it acts as a detriment to the characters, why the structure of it doesn't work, why the tone is off, whatever. I can tell you why it's a problem. Now, the vast majority of the fanbase does not seem able to do the same with like 90% of the criticism for this era, and that's the problem. Like I mentioned earlier, some issues are very self-explanatory. Stuff like the toy maker is defeated because he dropped a ball in a game of catch. Yeah, there's no need for much more insight into that, because that speaks for itself as to why it's a problem, how it massively undermines the toy maker and the entire story building up to that point. But this rule doesn't apply with every criticism, and evaluation is needed. But this fanbase seems very incapable of providing evaluation. Now, I'm not going to name anyone in particular because I'm not trying to start any sort of conflict with anyone, and also despite the fact that YouTube isn't my job and I don't make any money from it, I do still want to remain somewhat professional whilst doing these videos, and I don't think taking jabs at other channels is exactly the best way of doing that. Grifters being the exception, of course.
And here's where we get introduced to Diversity Hire number 6.
Yeah, I was wondering what his nickname for Belinda was going to be. It turns out it's going to be Diversity Hire number 6. She's black, so she must be a diversity hire. Of course. It's just so funny because I remember all the times in the Robot Revolution where they would make such a big deal out of her skin colour, and it was so preachy, and they made such a big thing about it. Oh wait, I don't remember that because it was literally never brought up. Because it isn't relevant. And speaking of isn't relevant, but there are even channels out there that I have always seen as reviewing episodes in a very objective manner, and even if it's an episode that they aren't particularly keen on, or in some instances even hate, they've always managed to explain their criticism in a way that feels as though it's coming from a place of, I want the show to be better, here's where it's going wrong. However, a lot of their more recent Series 15 reviews have felt more like hate watching, which I think is a problem going forward, as even those who always seemed like they wanted the best for the show feel as though they're steering away from that and crossing the line between reviewing based on genuine opinions and making stuff up and exaggerating in order to be negative, which isn't a good sign because there's hardly anywhere near enough people who care about getting the best for the show as it is. Now listen, right? I think that Billie Piper coming back to the show is, to put it bluntly, not a good idea. And this is not because of Billie Piper as an actress. I have nothing against her, professionally speaking or personally speaking. I have nothing against Rose Tyler as a character. She's not my favourite companion, but I don't have anything against the character. And I don't care whether Billie Piper is playing the 16th Doctor, the Moment, Rose Tyler, the Bad Wolf entity, whatever. As far as I'm concerned, Billie Piper has had her time on Doctor Who. She had her run, her moment in the spotlight, and it was 20 years ago. At least when David Tennant and Catherine Tate came back, it was for the 60th anniversary, and an anniversary special's job is to celebrate previous eras, and you can lean into nostalgia. But this is supposed to be the start of a new era, and you're having the Doctor regenerate into a past companion from 20 years ago. And also, the thing is, I'm not 4 years old anymore. I don't need nostalgia in every single episode to be invested. I don't need a flashback to every single previous Doctor 3 or 4 episodes in a row. And I don't need Billie Piper or David Tennant or Catherine Tate showing up every year to make me watch it. Yes, I love these 3 individuals, not just for how big a role they've played in contributing to what is in my opinion the golden era of this show, but also for their passion behind it, because you can tell they all care so much about this show. But you don't need to use them as clickbait or stunt casting just to make me watch the show. Russell is an exception because I feel like I do need him in order for the show to be great, because every time they've tried to find new people, it, in my opinion, hasn't worked out great. If you disagree, that's fine. But I personally think that from a writing point of view, Russell is the show's best chance. But you have Russell T Davies, you have Murray Gold, and you did have Ncuti Gatwa, Millie Gibson and Varada Sethu. I will watch Doctor Who for those people alone. I have been watching it for those people alone, and I've been absolutely loving it. I had a great time reacting to Series 15 every Saturday morning. This just doesn't work. So quite simply, I don't think this is a good idea. It's gimmicky, it's unnecessary, and I just think it's a misstep.
But, and this is a big but,
when you consider how the fan base has been, should we really be surprised at this point? Russell T Davies has given fans what they've been asking for, time and time again, and every single time he's been slagged off for doing so. So to be honest, the fact that he's decided to just do what he wants with the show as opposed to doing what the fans want doesn't really surprise me. Yes, he has a duty to listen to the fans and deliver them the show that they want to see. Yes, that is his job. And yes, he should be professional enough in order to achieve that. However, given the behaviour of the fan base, which is bordering on ungratefulness at this point, who can blame him for giving up on trying to please everyone and just doing whatever he wants? I'm not someone who was particularly bothered about seeing the Rani come back. I've got nothing against the character, but I personally have never felt any long-lasting desire to see her return. But loads of people have been asking for her to come back. And well, Russell brought her back. And you know what happened? Everyone complained about the way the reveal was done. Everyone lied and claimed that she didn't do anything in the episode she was in, and all people seem to talk about is the fact that her death scene was goofy. And yes, as I've said, it was goofy. But it's that same thing of, yeah, people could be focusing more on the positives of how intriguing her plan is, her motivation, the way she came back, the reveal scene, but they aren't doing that. People have just gone, right, the Rani's back, so what happens in these episodes? I can't complain about that, so I'll ignore it. Can't complain about it either, so I'll ignore that too. Oh, look, she gets killed off in an overly goofy way. Hooray! Here's something I can have a problem with. Right, there are other things I could talk about with her character from these 2 episodes, but I think I'll just say the negative stuff, thanks. It's indicative of the wider problem that so many people are hating, not because they've watched the episodes with an open mind and have gradually come to their own conclusions on whether it's good or bad, but because they just get off on being hateful. And I don't understand why anyone would want to do that. Like, what are you getting out of it? If you do take issue with the Rani as a villain throughout the story, that's fine. I am not telling you that you have to like it. I am not saying that you have to like Belinda's character arc. I am not saying that you have to be excited about the Susan mystery arc. All I am saying is that if you have issues with these things, then don't just say they're bad. Explain why. That's it. And don't make up false narratives just to make things sound worse than they are. Don't lie about what characters do or don't do. Don't oversimplify situations just for the sake of being negative, because this fan base is knee deep in toxicity right now, and it's just getting worse. If you have been watching the show and you have genuine criticisms and feedback that you think the show needs to take on board and that the writers need to adapt their scripts around it purely for the sake of the show doing well and being more successful, then brilliant. Bring it on. We need more people like you in this fan base. But if you're just tearing the show apart, looking for something to hate, then don't. Just stop doing that. All you're achieving is misery. Now, I know that this has been a very negative video, and I hate that about it, but I am going insane with this fanbase right now, and as much as I can and do make jokes about it, all we're doing is stressing each other out. And if you think I've been overly negative or harsh in this video, you're probably right. If you think I'm incorrect or you disagree with me regarding my reaction to people's criticism in this video, then great, I'd love to hear it. Let me know down in the comments below and we can have a proper discussion like 2 grown adults. But if you're just going to leave some kind of comment like, haha, Doctor Who doesn't even exist post 2017, it died with Capaldi, lol, then quite frankly, just get out of my comment section, as you are not the type of person that is welcome on this channel, as I would rather have no comments than comments like yours. And with that, I hope you've enjoyed this video. And I appreciate there are people in this fan base, like me, who just want to watch a 45-minute episode with an open mind and see what comes of it. Will it be amazing every single week? No, of course it won't. There's going to be weeks where you get episodes that are just okay, or episodes that are bad. That's going to happen regardless of who the Doctor is, who's running it, but it's that type of feeling that's needed in this fan base, and I honestly think that if more of us were capable of looking at the show in this light, there would be a lot less anger, hate and stress between us all. So thank you very much for watching, please like and subscribe for more, and I'll see you next time.